Hello, my name is Anthony Andrews and I'm the co-founder and creative director of We Are Parable, and in association with Leytonstone Loves Film and The Barbican, we present The Film Studio. The Film Studio is a series of talks designed to explore different careers working in film, from film marketing to PR and social media, diversity and inclusion to film journalism. We talk about some of the careers in film that you may not associate when you think about working in film. Next up, we have Zakiya Bale. Zakiya is the project officer for the BFI Film Academy, and in this talk we speak about her varied career, from working on a runner on shows such as Dragon's Den to working in production on documentaries to the role that she's doing now, and why she believes that understanding your values early on in your career is essential in building your career. So Zakiya, how are you?
Good, thank you. I'm very good.
Well, thanks
forward to this.
Well, thanks so much for being a part of the film studio. Really happy that you could be a part of it. Now, we've been working on a number of different projects over the last couple of months, and I was really quite interested in having you be part of the film studio, because one of the key objectives of this particular project is all about introducing people to careers that they might not associate with film. And, you know, as I got to know about you and your work, I thought you'd be a really great person to speak to about, you know, quite a unique career that you're carving out for yourself. So I wonder if you could just introduce yourself and just tell us a little bit about what you do.
Okay, so I work for the BFI, and I work on the Film Academy team. So my main role is to work with young people between 16 and 25 years old. And they are people who are interested in getting into the film industry. And my job is to create kind of pathways for them to do that. So whether it's through our courses or through partnerships with other organisations which give them opportunities to have experience in the film industry or get a kind of internship or a paid role. So my job is to kind of oversee all of that stuff and create a bit more of a diverse industry and opportunity for people who may not be able to access it in other ways or may not think that it's a career for them.
Are there quite a lot of young people who just feel like you know, film and TV isn't a career for them? There might be something that they're interested in, but they just can't see a way of how to get into that. Is that something that you normally come across quite a lot?
I think I come across people who think it would be a great career for them and would love to do it. And I think lots of people would love to be involved in the media because it's kind of seen as something which is really exciting and not like kind of your desk job, day-to-day job. But they either don't know how to do it, or they feel like it's an industry which wouldn't be able to provide them with like a steady income, or it's inaccessible for them because of whatever reason, because of their background, or because they don't come from a family which could support them. So I come across a lot of people like that, and people who kind of think that the film industry is maybe for people who have like a specific skill and they already have that skill, or they're like, oh, they're great at art, or they're great at, you know, photography or whatever it is, and they may not have those skills. So they just see it as like something which they'd love to do, but they just don't know how to get involved. Yeah. And that's why we're here.
Yeah, absolutely. That's why we're here. That's why we're doing what we're doing. So let's talk about you and your first entry point, your first reference point into film and TV. Could you tell us a little bit about your journey and how you got started in TV and film?
So I was, oh gosh, showing my age, about 15 years ago. When I was about 15, I was just really interested in the media and TV and kind of on-screen stories, and I felt like I could see lots of stories which were kind of negative and not a lot of them which were kind of positive about young people specifically. And it was at the time when everyone was like getting Asperger's and like you weren't allowed to congregate in big groups, much like today. You weren't allowed to congregate. Yeah. There was always a way to split people up and congregate in big groups, but it was at the time when young people were perceived quite negatively, and I just felt like I never saw myself portrayed in a positive light, and I wanted to do something which kind of combated that. And I went to Leeds Uni because I saw a course which was TV production, and it was very specific. I just decided that I wanted to do TV production because I thought I expect to do something specific than something broad. Sure. That was my philosophy, and I think that kind of worked out in a way, and I think it's actually true. And I went to Leeds Uni and studied TV production, and it was a course which was basically focused on skills, so learning about how to work a camera, learning about how to direct, how to be a sound operator. And the best thing about that course was that at the end of the 3 years you got a like placement somewhere. So it wasn't like, oh, you just have to go and find a placement. Like they placed you at a specific organisation. And because I was based in Leeds, there was lots of places all around the UK, but I decided that I wanted to work for the BBC. Mm-hmm. So I just applied for the BBC placement and no other placement, and I got it somehow. Wow. And so at the end of my 3 years, instead of doing a dissertation, I went and worked for the BBC on Dragon's Den. And at the time, it was filmed in Pinewood Studios.
Right.
And that, I think, opened up like a whole world, which I didn't even know about. I didn't know what Pinewood Studios was. Dragon's Den obviously knew what it was, but I didn't really know how it was made. And going to see like that and being a part of it, I was just a runner and had a little golf cart which I could drive around Pinewood Studios, and I got to see all the sets and see kind of people making these amazing feature films. And there was like people building ships. I can't remember what film it was, but it was just incredible. There's a kind of huge sets they were making, and I just thought this is exactly where I want to be and exactly the kind of thing I want to do. So yeah, it was a kind of, I was really lucky that Dragon's Den was based there.
Yeah, exactly. I guess, you know, what were some of the sort of key things that you learned working on such a massive project? So, because that's a very, like, and correct me if I'm wrong, but that's quite a unique thing for someone who's, you know, out of uni to get such a great opportunity straight off the bat. So what were some of the things that you took away from that experience? Can you tell us a little bit about that?
I think my main thing taken away from that was just how to like access the industry.
Sure.
And I think that's the thing which a lot of people struggle with. It was like how to be a runner in a sense, and how to kind of operate in that space. And I think for me, being from like Sheffield and just not having any kind of experience, I didn't know anyone who works in the industry, didn't have any family who works in the industry, and learning just how to kind of be on set and be a runner and be like around people and how to act was the main thing which I took away. And I think that's so important, and that's the thing which people kind of struggle with, because you literally just, if you come from off the street, you just don't know how to operate in those situations. And I think that was kind of the main thing. And also just how to network, because I knew that once I came off Dragon's Den, if I didn't like make a good impression, then I wasn't going to be able to get another job or another opportunity, because I didn't know anyone.
And that's the, you know, the idea of networking is still quite prevalent now. I guess we do it in slightly different ways where, you know, we can be more direct on social media. But would you still say that networking is key in order to sort of progress your career within this particular industry, within this particular sector?
I think it is. I hate networking, and I think like most people do. And I think it's actually a little bit of a shame that that is the case, and that you have to be able to network to be able to kind of you don't have to, but it's a big part of building a career in this industry. And I think that's one of the things which I'd like to change. It should be obviously about people's personalities and people who are amazing at their job and really passionate, but we should be giving opportunities to everyone, and it shouldn't be kind of a who you know situation. And that's one of the reasons why I got into the career I did, because I didn't think that that was a good way forward, and we shouldn't be just giving jobs to our friends. And
absolutely.
Yes, networking is good though.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. And I want to go back to your time as a runner. So I think there's a little bit of a misconception about what a runner is. So can you tell us a little bit about what you did as a runner?
So I was a runner for 3 jobs before I got made like a junior researcher, and all 3 jobs are very different, but essentially you're supporting the team who are on the ground filming or creating stories. So on Dragon's Den, my main job was to look after the dragons on Dragon's Den. So I went and got them breakfast, lunch, catered to every need they could possibly have. And just to make sure that their experience was comfortable so that they could focus on what it is that they were doing on set. I was also a runner so after Dragon's Den I decided I wanted to do more factual programming. So I was a runner on One Born Every Minute after that, and my main job was literally just to kind of make sure everything ran smoothly. So it is about like getting lunch, and it is about kind of getting people coffee and stuff, but at the same time it's about making sure that you're supporting that team and make sure that everything, that they can concentrate on what their job is.
What were some of the key things you took away from that, you know, from that particular role of being a runner? Like, how did that sort of help you in your future roles?
The most important thing is to be able to communicate with people, and lots of different people and in lots of different points of the day. And I think I still do that now. Then it was about being like able to talk to talent, able to talk to execs, and then also able to talk to kind of people on the streets, get them to move out of the way for filming purposes. Sure. Now I use that every day, being able to talk to young people. Could be on the phone to someone who's 16, not sure what they really want to do, could then speak to a parent, could then speak to someone from Disney who's wanting trainees on set, could then speak to yourself. You know, it's about being able to talk to everyone and understanding that people have different needs and different ways of expressing themselves. That's the main thing that I learned.
Yeah, definitely. And the reason I'm asking you that question is because I think that there might be a sense like when you're starting out that and you're doing something that, you know, is on the way to doing the thing that you really want to do, and you're looking at that first job and thinking, oh, this isn't what I want to do. And, you know, it's all about, you know, taking experiences from that initial job and then trying to apply it to your later jobs. So I think every experience is valid, and it's just about how you use it. So, you know, that's a really good example of that. So after you were a runner, can you tell us a little about the next step? What was the next step for you?
Yeah, like I said, I decided that I wanted to be, wanted to work in factual programming, but it was more, what I wanted to do was documentary. And that was the main thing which I was aiming to do, because I was really interested in telling stories and telling people's stories who may not be able to kind of get their point of view across in certain ways, and highlighting the way that people live in the UK and abroad. And that was what I wanted to do. So in my head, my main advice to everyone always is to think about where you want to be and work out the steps to get there. So I decided I was going to do documentary, and I was going to work on rig programs, which I like. We still have them, so 24 Hours in A&E is an example, but at the time there was loads of like rig shows. Everything was like a rig show, so it was like little cameras put in the side of the room, and then we watched people go about their daily lives. So I worked on One Born Every Minute, I worked on 24 Hours in A&E, and then I got a job working on The Prisoners, which is a BBC One documentary which was based in Holloway Prison. And I was there for 12 months maybe, and I basically was given a key to Holloway Prison and went and filmed young women who were on the wings of Holloway Prison in their cells, on the landings, and it was about the revolving door of people going in and out in a cycle of kind of petty crime, really, and trying to break that cycle. And that's what I did afterwards, and I absolutely loved it. And I realised that that was the kind of thing that I wanted to do. I wanted to work out ways which we could tell those kind of stories and help people. But that that kind of program comes with lots of different challenges, and one of the main reasons which I kind of moved away from that was because at that point, and I think still now, there was a lot of people telling stories from their point of view, and they were kind of talking about you know, these girls who were prisoners, but the program itself was amazing, but I think it always has a certain point of view on it, from execs, from BBC, from whoever else, and those points get clouded, and it's across the board in terms of lots of different programs I've worked on. And it just felt like the people who were in those stories wanted to say something which wasn't always said.
It seems like there was a big difference between working on sort of entertainment show like Dragon's Den to documentaries. Like, how did you manage that difference in sort of tone and, you know, the kind of, I guess the kind of rate of how you had to produce the content? Because I think a show like 24 Hours in A&E, you probably have to record a hell of a lot of stuff to really cram into that 1 hour. So I guess that in itself, like the way you worked was completely different, I would have thought.
Yeah, I guess entertainment shows, it's quite flashy. I worked on The Voice as well, and that was obviously really flashy.
Yeah.
And the main point is that it's exciting, it's something interesting. There's lots of different shots. You want to get like lots of different perspectives, and people are really excited, and that's the point in it. And I think the difference was navigating those differences was the people who you're filming in a hospital, for example, don't want to be there. They're not there because they want to be there. They're there because they have to, and there's something traumatic happening. And being able to have that empathy and understand that there's a point when you can speak to someone and they may be like, you know, in a waiting room kind of upset and wanting to see a doctor and waiting there for 4 hours, and navigating that compared to someone who's like, you know, wanting to be on Dragon's Den, and maybe they might win investment from the Dragon, or they might be on The Voice and they might, you know, get through to the next round. It's very all human experience, but it's very different human experience.
Yeah. So at this point, you're sort of gaining sort of like loads of experience. You've worked on like these really well-known shows. What's the next step after that? Like, where does your career go after that point?
So I worked on a number of other shows, and I decided that what I was really kind of enjoying was working with contributors, and that was kind of what I wanted to do, and I wanted to tell those stories. And from the start, as I said, like I decided that that was the reason why I got into it in the first place. So I went back to think about kind of what it was that I really wanted to do, and I decided to move across to Fixes, which was an ITV initiative, and it was basically a social action charity, I guess, and young people they use their own experiences to help other young people. So if you experienced anxiety, you would talk about your anxiety and the ways in which you dealt with it, and hopefully the film you made or the project you made and the discussion you had on ITV with like these little news segments that we did would help someone else who has anxiety. So I worked on that for 2 years, and it was really amazing because I worked with so many young people who did like really interesting things and used kind of their stories to help others. And I kind of, a lot of those people wanted to work in and make films, and they wanted to kind of create stuff. And I realised that what I was really good at was enabling other people to find a passion and find their role and what they wanted to do in the industry. And that's kind of where I started to make a little bit of a career change towards what I do now, and making things more accessible for the people. And that's kind of what I realised I was really good at.
You've spoken a lot about, you know, the accessibility for, you know, various stories to be told within the industry. And I guess one of the questions I wanted to ask you is about the barriers to entry in this particular industry, because you mentioned about nepotism, you mentioned about, you know, networking, how important that is, even though people hate doing it. I'm one of them. It's just not a fun experience to do. But, you know, can you tell us about some of the other barriers to entry that, you know, you might have particularly come across, or, you know, barriers to entry that are currently exist right now, and how have you worked past that, and how are you trying to change the industry, in your way to try and get over those barriers? So it's kind of a double question there.
Well, personally, what I've experienced is not knowing people in the industry, not having that in. And that was my experience when I was young, and my kind of, I guess, how I got past that was the networking, and was trying to make sure that I made a good impression so that people would want to hire me. But I think a lot of the barriers in terms of the industry as a whole that I've learned, and that I didn't actually realise when I was younger, is the fact that it's kind of contract to contract for everyone, and everyone's a freelancer. And obviously there are roles which aren't that, but a lot of the kind of creative roles and the people who work as producers or work as in directing, whatever it is that you want to do, it is contract to contract. And I think knowing that from the start when you go in is so important, because it's as important to be able to manage your own life and your own finances and your own kind of tax return and whatever as it is to be able to do the job. Because if you can't do all of that kind of stuff, then you won't be able to continue in that industry. And that's a major barrier. And I think people have to kind of just learn that. And there's places now like Screen Skills and whatever who have those courses and who have like all of that information. But at the start, when I started, there wasn't that around. And I think income and background is a huge barrier, as well as being someone who's not white and middle class. And I think if you're not white and middle class in this industry, it can be very difficult at times to kind of be around a set or an office where you're the only person who's not white middle class.
Yeah, definitely. And I guess to add to that, you'd probably say, like, and correct me if I'm wrong, but I guess being based in London or being from London, is that something? I mean, because it seems that a lot, certainly, there's been efforts to kind of, I guess, decentralize media over the last couple of years, but I think, probably the last 10 or so years, everything's been in London. So I guess if you're from London, it's much easier. But I was going to ask you about, your experience as a Black woman in the industry. I mean, how have you navigated your space within the sector that doesn't necessarily reflect who you are as a person?
I think in terms of when I was working on productions, I always tried to make sure that I wasn't being the person who let things go. So if someone said something, I mean, I think this is the experience of a lot of people in the industry, that if someone does say something, you kind of have to make a decision to be like, am I going to pick my battles? Am I going to say something at this point and maybe cause issues further down the line for myself, or am I not? And I think I really tried to be the type of person who didn't let things go. And I think it's about, I think now there's a lot more awareness, and I'm so glad that people kind of can go into the industry and can carve a space for themselves. And I think, but it is difficult at kind of 2021 to understand where your boundaries lie and making sure that you are not going home at night feeling like, gosh, I wish I'd said something, or we shouldn't be doing that, or whatever it is. And I think that for me, maybe that's the reason why I am where I am now. I've kind of carved a different path because I felt like that kind of stuff was really important to me, and I wanted to make sure that in 10 years' time, I wasn't working on productions feeling exactly the same as I did at 20.
Yeah. So I guess your advice would be just to, I guess, to call these things out when you see them. Would that be your advice, or is it a case of, being really clear about what, I guess, battles you want to pick?
My advice would be work out what your values are. And I think don't ever lose sight of that. Don't ever kind of compromise your own values just because of a career or because of an opportunity. And I think that's the main, my main advice to anyone who's entering the industry, not, anyone from any background. Make sure that you know what your values are and you want to stick by them, because in the end, if you do stick by them, you may have a few bumps along the road, but you'll get to a space where you're working in a job that you really enjoy and you really love. And I think that's the most important thing. We're not working in, thank God, we're not doctors and nurses, we're not working in life or death situations. So it should be something that you do enjoy and you feel good about. And we all work in this industry because we want to tell certain stories, and we want to live a certain life, or we want to be involved in a certain area. And I think what that is when you join. So just make sure that you stick with that.
Absolutely, it's great advice, really good advice. I was going to ask you about some of the projects that you're most proud of. They could come from, last couple of years, or what you're doing right now. Could you tell us about some of the projects you're really proud of, and I guess why you're proud of them? Are there any that stick out in your illustrious career?
Illustrious career. I would say actually the one which I mentioned before, the prisoners one, is probably the thing which I'm most proud of, and I think that was the most life-changing thing that I've done to date, because working in that kind of environment, I don't know anyone who has been into a prison in that kind of role, because you're not a prison officer, you're actually there to kind of give people the opportunity to talk about their lives. And once you get to the bottom of that, and they're really interested in talking about what has happened and the reason why they're there, and making sure that their experience is told, because they don't kind of often get that opportunity. And I think that's the thing which I'm most proud of, and it's on YouTube, you can watch it.
I'll definitely check that out. Put a little link at the bottom of the
No, please don't. It's so old now, and there's probably so many other prison documentaries, but for me it was really eye-opening.
That's great. So if you could talk about your role now, and I guess some of the qualities and some of the attributes you would need to be able to, you know, be successful in what you're doing right now.
You need a lot of patience, and a lot of drive to want to make a difference and want to make change, because you do come up against a lot of barriers and a lot of no's, and you need to be able to just think, I think that this is a really good idea, or I think that this is what we should be doing, and kind of push forward and go for it. I think you need great organisational skills. Essentially, the job that I do is like project management, coordination, program management, like a mix of all of them. And I think that experience doesn't always come from working on a film set. That experience could come from lots of different places, and the ability to be able to plan something, create an idea, plan it, deliver it, and then have an ending to it within budget is a really good skill to have for this role.
Tell me about some of the perks of the job that you're doing now. What are some of the things where you're like, yeah, this is cool?
I guess because my role specifically, working with young people and kind of giving people like a talent entrance to the industry, is a specific role, but it's probably in lots of other organisations. So it depends on obviously the organisation you go into, the perks you get. But because I'm at the BFI, obviously the perks I have are slightly different. But I get to be around the BFI, and there's lots of amazing people who are there who are doing really incredible things, and I just get to be around there. I get to go to films for free. South Bank.
That's free, right? That's it.
Exactly. That's a perk. I get to go to like Q&As, like live Q&As for free. Like I saw you guys do the one with Blue Story.
Oh, yeah.
And I get to go to LFF, London Film Festival, and then also, aside from just kind of BFI related stuff, for my role specifically, I'm back at Pinewood all the time, because we've got trainees who are on amazing productions there. So I get to be at Pinewood, get to be at different studios, and just kind of, there's lots of different like other perks that you get to do. You get to be involved in film, but and be able to be in the industry, but you're kind of a little bit outside, so you're not kind of involved in the 16-hour days, which everyone else does. I just do a 9 to 5.
Perfect. So final question. Thank you so much for your time. I really do appreciate you being part of the film studio. So can you give me maybe a couple of pieces of advice you might give to someone who wanted to explore a similar career to yours? So obviously, you know, you've gone from, from runner to working in production to doing what you do now. But, what are some of the sort of key nuggets of advice you've learned on the way, and what would you pass on to someone who is, I guess, starting out their career in film and TV?
I think what I kind of touched on like a while ago in the conversation was that I always look at where I want to go and work out the steps to get there. And I think that's so important, especially for this kind of role. What are the qualities and experiences that you need to be able to do the job? And my job is very specific, but like I said, it is kind of project management. So working out where you can get those experiences, and they're not always necessarily, it doesn't have to be like, in film, it could be elsewhere, but you bring those experiences back, and it's so much about transferable skills. And I think for someone who's 16, 17, 20, 21, whatever it is, wherever you are in your kind of education or starting out your career, look at where you want to be and work out, can I get that experience at, I don't know, working at O2? Can I get that experience working at wherever? And bring those skills together and make sure that you are able to talk about how those skills transfer over and how you can use your own experiences to bring something different to the role. And I would say to everyone, like, even if you've not got, you know, loads of contacts in film or an amazing experience in this, you can bring something yourself to the role, because everyone's unique and everyone's got different life experiences, and work out what it is that you especially bring to whatever role it is that you're applying for, and go for it.
It's amazing advice. Thank you so much. Zakiya Bale, it's been amazing talking to you as part of the film studio. Thank you for coming. That was great. Thank you.
Good. I'm glad. Thank you.